Aloha, everyone. I am Leslie, your NRWO liaison for today's session, First Generation Friday. Before we get started, I'll be covering some housekeeping items for today's webinar. First, you should be able to hear me clearly. If you cannot, please note that in the chat box so that we may troubleshoot with you. Some simple fixes include connecting your audio on the Zoom window, turning up your computer volume, or using external headphones. Second, please utilize the chat and Q&A functions if you have questions for the presenters or about what was shared. For most sessions, all questions will be saved for the end of the presentation. Additionally, participants in the chat are asked to be respectful of others and stay focused on the topic of this webinar so those with questions can easily be seen. Finally, after the session, we will be uploading the recording of this webinar on our website with closed captioning, where you can also find additional resources pertaining to this session. Now, I would like to welcome and introduce today's presenter, Jennifer Pagala Barnett, who is the Associate Director in the Office of Student Equity, Excellence, and Diversity. And with that, I will turn over the presentation to Ms. Pagala Barnett.
Aloha. Aloha, everyone. Like Leslie said, I'm Jen Pagala Barnett. Thanks for having me on as part of the orientation program for this spring. So I just want to start off by sharing a little bit about myself. I think it's important for folks to know if you're hearing from me, you know, who I am, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about the programming that we're going to have today. So like Leslie said, I am the Associate Director for our Student Equity, Excellence, and Diversity program here at UH Manoa. I was born in the Philippines, moved to the San Francisco Bay Area when I was about 5 years old. And I grew up in a city called Vallejo. So if anyone is from that area and can relate, you know where I'm from. I'm a 1.5 generation immigrant, and I'm a proud first-gen student, the first in my family to complete a 4-year college degree. And I've lived here in Hawaii for about 25 years and received both my undergrad and graduate degrees at UH Manoa in the field of social work. So that's just a little bit about me. So this is, you know, our program is going to be fairly kind of short today. I want to give folks opportunity to ask questions, but in general, this is what we're going to be talking about, just appreciating you as a first gen, and really it's about helping you with some tips for success and learning how to sort of balance it all as a first gen student. So okay, so, and Leslie may have showed you this, and you all may have seen this in other orientation sessions, but I just wanted to remind you that the orientation website is amazing, and that just like this session, there's recorded sessions that you can go through. So this is always a good resource to have to make sure that you know about. Okay. So what does it mean to be a first-gen student? And it's interesting because a lot of students have said, well, am I first-gen? You know, what does that really mean, right? So the definition, sort of the general definition that we use at our institution is a first-generation college student is defined as a student whose parents or legal guardians have not completed a bachelor's degree. This means that you're the first person in your family to attend a 4-year college or university to attain a bachelor's degree. And so folks have said, well, what if my parents went to community college? And that you're still actually first gen, right? Because it has to be at a 4-year institution or getting a bachelor's degree. So for me, my parents, both from the Philippines, did receive a higher education degree, but it wasn't in the United States. So they actually were really unable to help me when I was applying for college. I felt kind of lost, you know, as a first gen student, and didn't really realize how important it was to recognize that I was first gen until, you know, very recently, actually. So just so that you know, nationally, around 20% of all incoming students at 4-year universities are the first in their family to attend college. So I just want to, you know, send a huge congratulations to you for getting accepted into our institution. Being the first in your family to attend college is exciting. And although we know that this is not how you pictured your college experience to be, know that we're here for you to help the experience be a good one. So, okay. So we're going to go into some tips on being first gen. So what I really want to share with folks is that really want you to think about embracing being a first gen college student. I mean, this is huge. This transition is really big for first gen students. Know that you have tons and tons of information and experiences to contribute to our institution, and don't be afraid to take chances, but smart chances, right? So, and really be proud of who you are as a first gen student and all of those identities that come with it as a first gen student, right? So even though sometimes it may feel really intimidating, and again, for me as a first gen student coming onto a college campus, even virtually, I can imagine that coming onto a college, you know, as your first time, a four-year institution for your first time, can be pretty intimidating, you know, and I remember feeling that way, but always remember that you belong here, right? And know that we as an institution are proud of you and that we really are building our first gen community. So this is a quick picture of one of the students that has worked in our seed office before, Noemi, and she's actually now in grad school and getting her master's degree in public health at our institution. So just some positive things, right, that you can look forward to. So helpful tips for success. The first thing is really actually ask for help. It's totally okay to ask for help, you know, go see your academic advisor early on. Don't be afraid to see your professors during office hours. What does office hours mean? It doesn't mean like office hours is the time that your professors are working. No, it's a time when you go to make appointments with them. They've left those times open for you. And I remember as a first gen student actually not knowing about that. So it's okay to ask for help and make sure that you're really utilizing your resources, right? Form study groups with your peers, and just really, I just want to stress that don't wait until it's too late to ask for help or to speak to a professor, make appointments with your academic advisor. Do those things early on. So, okay. Next thing as a tip is that there are kind of important resources to remember as a first gen student. And if you have attended other sessions that you may have heard about this, but I kind of want to re-stress that these are some important resources to remember. So the Learning Assistance Center, right, is they'll work with you kind of on your schedule, getting you organized, setting academic goals for yourself, and giving you tips on how to study. I'll tell you, as a student, I didn't even know about half of these resources, and I regret now that I never used them. The Writing Center is still something that I think that I should be using. So the Writing Center, they have consultants there to help you that are trained in pretty much all stages of your writing. So even if you're just thinking about brainstorming on what you're going to say, what is your outline going to look like? So whether you're revising a draft or somewhere in between, they can help with your essay writing, research papers, resumes, even creative writing. So that's a good resource that I think is there that is underutilized for a lot of students, whether they're embarrassed to go or not, but the Writing Center is a really great resource. The COCOO program is also just something that I think all students should be aware of, and it's our office for students with documented disabilities. So know that if you need help, that you can go there to ask for that. And then our Career Center is also really important. It's the place where you can help find a campus job on or off campus, right? But knowing that campus positions will actually help you as a student, right? It helps, you know, studies have shown that students who find work on campus actually do a lot better, right? So more engagement with a campus, the better it is for your academic success. So the Career Center also offers workshops, they offer career counseling, and they do this really important thing, resume building. They will do mock interviews with you, which I which I actually have taken advantage of as well. So just remember to use them as a resource. And then SEED, the office that I'm in, Student Equity, Excellence, and Diversity. And this is where you'll find lots of different programs in terms of helping you access resources on campus, making sure that you're successful, and linking you to many different programs that we have within our SEED community. So just remember that these are really important resources to remember as a first-gen student, and for all students actually. So another tip is to remember that making tough financial decisions, it's important, right? That this is something that you probably have to experience. And why I say this is that I think what's really important is that you try to really be proactive about your financial assistance, right? Go and meet with a financial aid counselor early on. And for some first-gen students, which was really applicable to me, that the financial assistance that I received through college didn't just affect me, right? That it actually affected my family. And in knowing how much they needed to help me, or how much I could actually help in contributing to my own college career. So ask about scholarships, and just know that our financial aid offices are there for you. They do have kind of weird hours, and they close a little bit early, but like I said, make sure that you are connecting with a financial aid counselor as soon as possible, and connect with them whenever you need to. Okay. The other tip I have for you is to ensuring that you are balancing your multiple responsibilities. We know that college life isn't just about attending classes, right? And before you were probably, came to college, you were involved with different kinds of co-curricular activities. And at UH, we have opportunities for you to join tons of different things like RIOs, join in events. Even though things are happening virtually, there are lots of things happening, that you work. And you're doing all of these things as you're navigating new friendships, your new transition to college. And there are a lot of students that I know that get very homesick, right? So it's important to be connecting with family and friends, but also to talk with all of them about what your expectations are of each other. Just know that this transition is huge, and how will you be communicating through this time? So as you get more comfortable and involved with campus and the community, here it's important to share what's going on with you, and that you're taking some time to formulate these important connections here as well, right? So when I first came to college, I actually moved right from California. The first week I was in constant communication with my family and my parents. And then as I got more and more engaged and met new friends, that communication wasn't as often. And so my parents worried about me, but it was like important for them to understand, well, this is actually what I'm doing and this is what I'm going through. So just as a reminder that that's really important for first gen students. If your parents never went to college, it's hard for them to sort of realize what it is that you're experiencing is. So make sure that you're communicating. And as you move on forward in your academic journey, you might find other things like internships and things that might keep you away from things that you were used to in the past, or not being able to go home as often. So just making sure that you're having those conversations. It can be a lot. So just know that you will be balancing multiple responsibilities, that it's possible, and that you can do it, but just to make sure that you're having open communication with those folks that are really important to you. Another tip is really deciding who will be your network of support. Right? And this might change throughout your college career, but which family members can help support you? What are friends that can understand what you're experiencing? I just remember that some of my relationships changed, like when I went to college, right? Like there was an aunt that I felt particularly closer to because she would help me think about difficult conversations I would need to have with my parents regarding like college or, all kinds of things. So, think about who your network of support will be, right? And let them know, like, this is the role that I'm asking you to take, and that I need you to be there for me. And I need you to be part of my support system. Those conversations are important to have. Um, Another thing I think that's really important to remember is that you want to look for mentors on campus, that can really put your best interests forward, right? Those are important relationships to have. And I think the more students connect with mentors or faculty and staff on campus, the more engaged you will be, the more supported you will feel. So don't be afraid to do those things. It's actually important. Okay, so I wanted to show this to you because I want you to know that you are going to be part of a community that we're building at Manoa, and this is really important to us. So I wanted to show you just an example of a new celebration that we had this year. So it was our first Gen College celebration that we ran for a week in November, and it was really to start building our first Gen community, starting to connect them, and really helping you to feel proud about who you are as a first gen. So I just wanted to show you the example, let you know that I am first UHM is our is how you can follow us at Instagram. But here's just an example. Look at all of our first gen community, right? So there were students, professors, different folks on campus, directors, housing folks that all wanted to share and be part of this community. And I'm showing this to let you know that, there's a lot of us, right? And I don't ever want first gen students to feel like they're alone. And it just continues. And so actually what happened was we had hoped to do a week-long event, and it became longer than that, because there were so many students that, or faculty, staff, and students that wanted to become part of our first gen Ohana. So we're going to continue to do that. So if you would like to participate, we will also give you a spotlight. And I wanted to show you particular spotlight. So this is actually a student that I work with, and the spotlight includes like some quotes and some questions that we asked them. And Robbie is from Stockton, right? But he's been here living in Hawaii. He's an ethnic studies major and education administration major. He's part of the BAM program here. So college for him was the first place where he was allowed to make his own decisions and follow his own aspirations in a way that he wanted and at his own pace, right? I know Robbie, he's a great student. And so, he credits a lot of his education to his grandparents. I love these pictures that he shared with us, and that he ensures that they have been part of his academic success, right? So his advice to first gen students was, no matter where you are, what you're planning on doing, and that your ancestors are proud of you, even if they didn't have much of a say in the jobs they've worked in or the lives they've led, that you own agency and have your own voice, which is all they ever wanted for you. So that's advice coming from one of our first gen students. This is another first gen student, and actually I didn't realize, but I showed her picture earlier. And so Noemi is from Saipan, and she was also another student that was highlighted in our first gen event. I love this picture with her parents, and she talks about her parents as being her hero, and her advice really to first gen students was to always seek out resources that may be available to you. By doing so, you'll meet some people who've had similar backgrounds, upbringing to you, and you may be surprised at the doors that are opened up in the process. So, which has been very true for her. She's, taken advantage of different internships and scholarships, and she was a big part of our SEED community. So she's been a very successful student. Okay. And then I wanted you to know who are some faculty and staff that are particularly specifically working on first gen initiatives on campus. So here's just a few of our faculty and staff members, and you'll see that they're from multidisciplinary, groups. Like we have someone from housing, Kenny and Mahia and Dr. Kemwell, who you may have seen in a different session. And then we have, like someone from our Vice Chancellor of Students office and our Gear Up office. So just to give you an idea of who are our faculty and staff that you can go to as a first gen student, who will understand what your needs are and are willing to help you. Wow, that went pretty quickly. So that's all I have in terms of like a formal presentation, but are there any questions that folks might have? I'm going to stop sharing screen here if that's okay, Leslie. Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much for sharing, Jennifer. I love the presentation and I love all the tips that you're sharing with our first generation students and really any of our students, right? All of them can be particularly helpful, but especially for our first generation students. And while we wait for our questions to come in from our attendees, I'd love for you to share any experience that you had as a first generation student that really shaped your time at the institution from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Leslie, it's interesting because like I had mentioned earlier that I didn't realize the importance of being a first gen student. And you'll kind of notice that in higher ed, you'll notice this as a student is that first gen is becoming sort of like a new topic and a new focus and concentration for a lot of higher ed institutions, because first gen students do have some particular needs and some specific resources that might be helpful for them that we didn't realize in the past. So for me, that's what it was. I didn't, my brothers didn't go to college. They were my older siblings, right? And then I kind of followed along and did whatever it was that my friends were doing. And I was like, I know I'm going to college. My parents told me I'm going to college, but could never help me in figuring out how to do that, right? So I actually feel like so before working in higher ed, and Leslie knows this, is that I do have a degree in nursing. And so my degree in nursing, I think, may have stemmed from becoming a first gen student, because I just had so much pressure to go to college, but didn't really have any direction. I just knew that I had to do it. So I felt pressure to choose something, but I think in my heart of hearts, it wasn't the right choice. So although I finished and do have a nursing degree, it did lead me to a different, sort of trajectory in my career. And I went into social work. So I think that a lot of first gen students don't realize that they're first gen and that their experience might be a little bit different, from other people. So just ask for help, I think, is a good, a good piece of advice.
Yeah. And I think too, as a first generation student as well, there wasn't ever a thing where I wasn't going to go to college, even though I was the first generation. There was just something that, what else was I going to do out of high school, right? I wanted to do things that required a college degree. And so, but going to college was a whole new thing. How do we pay? Where do we pay the money to? How do we register? How do we get to school? All these different things were new to my family. So kind of navigating that is a whole nother level of integrating. But then once I got to college, I remember one particular experience where I was volunteering, and the faculty or staff who was our lead at the volunteer group ended up offering me a student working position while I was there. And I think that kind of taught me that trying to put yourself into positions at the institution where things like that can happen. And that doesn't mean necessarily like going outside of your normal behavior and like putting yourself in areas where you're uncomfortable, but maybe in a way to not be afraid to take chances and not be afraid to network and talk with the faculty, talk with your, any of your mentors or staff, because you never know when that relationship might help you in the future to do that. And I think that the understanding that those relationships are crucial in while you're getting your degree, because they're going to be the ones writing your recommendation letters or helping you get an internship or things like that. It is very relationship focused. So sometimes that might not be something that students who are not used to the environment are not knowing about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah, I think another point that that might be helpful, and we're doing this, as students are already accepted right into our institution, but I think the outreach to first gen students needs to happen much earlier. Like I wish that like my high school or the community college I attended had offered first gen sessions or things for families, right? Because like I think that I would have wanted to include my family a little bit more. They would say, go do what you need to do, but they had no understanding of what that meant, right? And so, but I know that for most of us, the journey is really important as a family. And so I think that including them in ways that are meaningful for them as well and provide better understanding for them as well would be useful. So.
Yeah. Because that is the initial support system, right? And so how can we support the support system, and how can we help them with the information that they'll need? Because a lot of the things that a new first generation student into an institution is going to experience is going to be new for everybody. So how to get involved with organizations, or how to know that midterms will be one of the most stressful new steps for them, or final exams, or all these different things. Everything will be new that first year. And so how do we overcome that, I think is really important. And I think also the support as far as, like you said, choosing a direction. Do they want to be in nursing, or maybe they want to do something like a liberal arts or some sort of degree in that area, and how they can have the opportunity and resources to make that decision, I think is really important too. I remember I changed my major my first year of school. I moved from business, which I thought I was going to be some business powerhouse, to education. And so when I didn't know what I was doing when I made that choice. And I remember the conversation was very much based in, we're paying a lot of money to get a business degree. Is that same money worth it to get an education degree? And so I think that is an important conversation that a family makes when they're having a first generation student. And so encouraging that exploration and talk about goals and outcomes and things like that when they're making that choice. So all of that are services that academic advising can help with, as well as mentor employees at the university. If a student connects with an employee, to have that conversation and offer that support.
That's right. Yeah. And you brought up a good point where I just want to say that it's okay if you change your major. I think that's not uncommon for a lot of students. And I think I was afraid to do it. That's why I just finished, because I was like, there's no other option. I've chosen this, and this is the only way to go. But as you move along through your, college career, that things may change for you, just like it did for you, Leslie. And it's okay to explore that. Right. So, yeah.
Another area I was just thinking about too are some of these other educational opportunities that might seem out of reach for a first generation student or impractical. And so I'm thinking about study away experiences like the National Student Exchange, study abroad, Manoa International Exchange. And we just had a session yesterday. And for example, National Student Exchange, Allison Yap was sharing that actually a tuition in the National Student Exchange might be more affordable than a Manoa tuition. And so I think that it could be very encouraging for students who have this impression of a study away experience being very costly. and being
Right.
very expensive, when in reality, it could actually be just as affordable or more so than a Manoa experience. So I don't know if you have any other comments about that.
I went on a college abroad experience myself. So I did and I did it through a language program. I took Filipino in at UH, and they offered a language immersion program to go to the Philippines for the summer. And I did it. It was one of the best things that I had ever done, but it wasn't anything that, say, like my parents had told me about, or, you know, it was something that I had learned through connections, right? Like you're saying. So, but you're right. I think that first gen students, I think it's important for them to have the understanding that opportunities are kind of limitless, right? So that there's so much out there, and that it's available for them as well. So yeah.
Can you share a little bit about the conversation you had with your family when you were making this decision to go to the language immersion program? Was there any confusion about that with your family, and how did you kind of work through that?
So it was something that was offered, like I said, through our language program, our Filipino language program, and it was one of my instructors that said, "Oh, you know, Jen, do you think you'd be interested in going?" And it was, you have to apply. You have to be a Fulbright scholarship. They gave you a Fulbright scholarship to attend. So, I mean, it was free. I didn't have to, you know. So when I had it was unique though, because I had not been back to the Philippines since I left when I was 5. So when I told my parents that I was going, they were like, "What do we need to do? Do we need to come?" And, you know, like, and I was like, "No, no, no, no. This is like something," because they just didn't have an idea about what, you know, study abroad meant, right? So, and it was like, "Well, what is our responsibility? Do we need to help you pay?" And I said, "Oh no, I actually got a scholarship," and things like that. So so they were super happy, but nervous, right? Because this was the first time I had been out of country, you know, since we left. And they were like, "Well, you know, things have changed, and you got to be careful." Like, you know, there's a lot of anxiety and fear on their end, you know, because they just are not familiar with the experience. So again, those conversations I think are really important, but it turned out being one of the best things I did when I was in college. So
And
yeah.
I was supposed to go abroad. I was supposed to go to Brussels my sophomore year, but I changed my major. So that wasn't really relevant anymore. But I remember when I was applying, and I come from a single parent household. And
Uh-huh.
so my mom was very concerned about the costs, and, you know, this isn't normal, because study abroad used to be something where it took a lot of money to do. It was for those with means to do that. And so my mom was very concerned, and we went through everything and worked through everything. And it actually was not, it was going to be the same cost as my tuition. So there was no issue with any of that. But I think that's an example of a perception about some programs where they just think that something is out of reach to them, or they're not able to. But you prove the fact that there are opportunities for students to apply for things that may not even cost anything at all, where they are able to, with their merit and their hard work, to achieve a trip or do an experience like that. And then with my experience, it shows that even if it isn't free, it might not cost the same or more than the tuition. So all of these are very much within reach for all of our students, really, if they're interested in doing that. And I always like to share too, we have a student who, or a participant who has asked, what would be your number one tip for an incoming new first generation student to the institution? So why don't you share first, Jen?
First tip. Oh gosh. I think I don't know. I like I said earlier, I think it's always important to not be afraid to build relationships on campus. You know, I think the more that you're connected, whether, and it's not, you know, not just faculty and staff, but friends and, you know, folks in your class that you can connect with. Just because it helps you not to feel alone, right? And it helps you to feel like there are other people who understand your experience. I just remember coming into UH and feeling really intimidated and anxious because I had knew no one. I just came from California, and what I would do is just go to class and leave right after class. You know, wouldn't even go to the cafeteria for food or anything. And it wasn't until someone approached me and, you know, said, "Hey, you want to have lunch together one day?" You know, here, and I think that really helped me to feel a little bit more comfortable, and to be able to just feel like I can connect easier, you know? So I think it's just about, my tip is just to, you know that you belong on campus, right? That this is your campus, and to just kind of reach out and not be afraid to start those relationships. They're going to be important, you know, through your career, your college career.
That's great. And I would kind of build on that and say that if you need something and you need assistance, to reach out, because I don't know a single person who works at the university who doesn't want students to succeed. And so if you need assistance, to reach out to somebody, if it's sending an email to me or sending an email to orientation or Jen, please do that, because it's important when you need help to reach out, because we don't want it to get too far down the road and then it becomes more difficult to help with something. So please reach out when there is an issue so that somebody can try and assist you to figure out what to do to make it better. So that's just something for that. And then Jen, I think we shared a little bit about this in another group we were in, but what is your favorite thing about University of Hawaii at Manoa?
There's so many. Okay, my favorite thing.
One of your favorite things.
Okay, so I don't know what. Okay, I'll just say my favorite day at the university is the first day of school.
Okay.
Yeah, is the first day of school. Like I just love, and of course it's different because it's virtual right now. But I love the feeling on campus when we have new students who are looking forward to like learning and engaging, and it's just so super exciting. And that's what, you know, that's why I'm in this field, right? Is that there is so much to learn and so much to do and so much to experience. It's the first day of school is like the best feeling for me. You know, I love it. And graduation. I love seeing graduation. So that's kind of my favorite thing, I think, about the university. But I don't know. There's so many. I think that we're just such a supportive campus for students, and so okay, I'm telling you like 2 or 3 favorite things. So I'll just kind of stop there. But yeah.
You know, mine is actually kind of similar, but I just like the feeling of people on campus in general. I always have during spring break and winter break and summer break. It's not as exciting as walking around and seeing new people and people going off to classes, or, you know, getting coffee with friends, or all of those different things. I think University of Hawaii at Manoa is especially community-like. It maybe is our setting, it maybe is our location in the Manoa Valley, but something about it, all of it together, something about it has created kind of this feeling of when people are there, there's activity, but it's calm, it's welcoming and things like that. So particularly, I encourage students to just go down the green space between our academic buildings. Either you're in the walkway with the tunnel of trees, or you're over behind Hawaii Hall with the grass space. But wherever you are, just take a minute, sit down, enjoy the area. You'll see wonderful views of the ridges behind and around campus, and just spend time relaxing and thinking about this experience, because it's going to change for you for the rest of your life. And so think about that and be in reflection when you're doing that so that you can kind of enjoy it because you've earned it. It's
Mhm.
not an easy task to get to college. And so you've earned it, and there's time to take that you can reflect on that. Jen, I think that's the end of the questions. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I think just, welcome. And we look forward to working with you and supporting you. And
Well, thank you so much for joining us today for this
thank
presentation.
you.
We hope that you gained, all our participants gained some helpful information. If you have further questions or questions that cannot be discussed, please email nrwo@hawaii.edu for assistance. If you have not yet explored the orientation website, I recommend you look around at the extensive information provided there. For example, there are online modules and quizzes. Completing them enters you into a drawing for some cool prizes. As mentioned, this webinar will be published on the new Rainbow Warrior Orientation website, so please visit that page for the recording, as well as links or documents mentioned by today's speakers. Thank you and mahalo for joining us today.
Thank you.